Your Excellency, it's a delight to be with you. Thank you so much.
Pleased to have you come in to visit with you.
For the umpteenth time, I and so many others are asking, under Canon 915, what should or should not be done?
The canon is completely clear. It's not subject, in my judgment, to other interpretations. When someone is publicly and obstinately in grave sin, you may not administer Holy Communion to the person. And that basically for two reasons. Number one, to prevent the person himself from committing or herself from committing a sacrilege. And secondly, to protect the sanctity of the Holy Eucharist. In other words, to approach and to receive our Lord in Holy Communion when one insists on remaining in grave sin is such a violation of the sanctity of the Holy Eucharist. So that communion must not be given to people who are publicly, obstinately in grave sin.
And so does that apply to politicians of any party that are saying, yes, it's okay to abort children, to kill children?
Yes, for someone who in any way contributes in an active way to the murder of innocent and defenseless infants in the womb, children in the womb, from the very inception of human life, this is the gravest of sins. And so such a person, until he or she has reformed his or her life, should not have approached to receive Holy Communion.
And if they do approach, the person who is administering Holy Communion should say no.
Right. In fact, the canon puts the burden upon the administrator of Holy Communion, whether it's the ordinary minister, which would be a bishop, a priest, a deacon, or an extraordinary minister. It doesn't make any difference. It says they're not to be admitted to receive Holy Communion. Normally speaking, in my experience, when I have spoken with, for instance, Catholic politicians who have insisted on supporting pro-abortion legislation and told them they should not approach anymore to receive Holy Communion, in my experience, they don't. Now, this, where bishops have not applied the canon, oftentimes it's said that this will cause some kind of disorder at the communion, the time of distribution of Holy Communion. That's not verified. It's not using Holy Communion to make a statement at all. It's simply respecting this most sacred gift that we have, namely the body and blood of Christ, which can only be received when one has repented of his sins. And I have also made the point, and I believe that it is true, that on the contrary, those public figures, Catholics, who are consistently promoting pro-abortion legislation and policies, use the reception of Holy Communion to try to justify what they're doing. In other words, to present themselves as devout Catholics when in fact they are sinning against the most fundamental teaching of the moral law.
When the election was approaching, Bishop Martino said he would not serve communion to vice presidential candidate Joe Biden. There were a handful of other bishops who made similar statements, for which the laity and the faithful were rejoicing. But the deafening silence from so many other bishops, and also the bishops who stepped up, such as Washington, D.C., Virginia, others, they said, Massachusetts, that we will serve communion, was so painful for us. What word of encouragement would you give, first to the laity on our struggle to bring orthodoxy back, and then to your brother bishops and priests?
I think simply to reflect upon this norm of the Church's discipline, Canon 915, which is one of the most important canon to safeguard the greatest treasure that we have in this life, namely the communion with our Lord Jesus Christ in his true body and his true blood, and to in every way work so that also a public witness is given to the sacredness of the Holy Eucharist. And so I would encourage the faithful, when they are scandalized by the giving of Holy Communion to persons who are publicly and obstinately in sin, that they go to their pastors, whether it's the parish priest or to the bishop, to insist that this scandal stop, because it's weakening the faith of everyone. It's giving the impression that well, it must be morally correct to support procured abortion, and at least in some circumstances, if not also generally. So they need to insist with the parish priest and the bishops. And for the rest, to my brother bishops and to my brother priests, simply to say that the service of the Church in the world of today has to begin first and foremost with the protection of the life of those who are the most defenseless and the most innocent, namely the unborn, and certainly has to extend also to those who are gravely ill, are burdened with serious illness, who have special needs, and are also now more and more, their lives are being threatened by a culture of death which sadly has infected our nation. And so I would just urge my brother bishops and my brother priests to see as the most fundamental witness and service which they can give in leading also the faithful in their pastoral care is the apostolate of the respect for human life.